And welcome to day 2 of the season 22 SFL Rookie Draft. 50 names got their places in the SFL confirmed last night, all starting by Ash Ketchum going the way of the Denver Nightwings at halfback, joining the long list of first overall draft picks, quickly followed by wide receivers Devin Lloyd and Henry McGee to Indianapolis and Atlanta respectively. And now we go back to Denver to begin round 3 here on day 2 as Denver, you are now on the clock. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you might be in this wild world of ours. I'm Tyler Falk, happy to have your company here as we get started with the final round of draft coverage today. I'm joined alongside two of my esteemed colleagues. One of them is my longtime broadcast partner and favorite Canadian. Welcome back, Brett Solberg. Glad to have you here, sir.
I'm glad to be here. I wish I was here yesterday, but unfortunately, duty calls and this job doesn't pay me near $20 an hour. So unfortunately, I had to go to my actual real life job and take care of business here. But I'm glad to be here in round 3, and I'm ready to analyze this like any other SFL broadcaster can, with my best Minnesotan partner over on my left, and then someone I haven't talked to too much on my right here, but I'm pretty sure we'll get acquainted down the line.
Well, thank you, Brett. And as someone who you might have not talked to too much, but who did an excellent job on draft night number 1 with rounds 1 and 2, we welcome back Jason Peace back to the show. How you doing, Jason?
Well, thank you for that. I tried to hold my own. I'm doing great. The draft kept me from watching a disaster last night in the Cotton Bowl. So I had a lot more fun doing the draft than I would have watching that game. I'm glad to be back today.
Absolutely. The big story last night is a bunch of names came off the board on the defensive side of the ball, Brett. We've only got 8 players left in the draft pool at the defensive spot. So we could see all those names come off the board fairly quickly with only 25 picks to go here in the draft. Let's walk through what Denver might be thinking here as they still have another pick after this later on in the draft.
So they took Ace Ketchum with the first overall pick, as you've stated earlier here, and then they also took Dalton Barker, the wide receiver, as well. So with their last 2 picks, they could go defense and take one of those 8 remaining players left. They've still got a couple holes to fill, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they say first off, hey, we still need special teams at this point. There's still 3 kickers that you can convert to punters if you want as well. At certain points, you still got Ian Degon, you've got Zach Theo, and you've got Jackson Arthur. You've got those 3 guys available. I wouldn't be too surprised if they wait until pick 70 to get that kicker, but we could also just say see it from Jeremy's perspective that, hey, we need to get that kicker now or else we're not going to get that kicker anymore, because there's 25 picks left in this draft, and I think there's only like 28 prospects to choose from. So there's that field is going to get smaller and smaller once you get to pick 70.
And it's there. Everyone becomes a hot commodity at this point. We really have to get moving along, and Denver is already done so. And so we head over here live at SFL headquarters. I get to go ahead and just basically pass the mic literally to Cam and Irvine here in studio. Cam.
Thank you, Tyler. With the 51st pick in the SFL Season 22 Rookie Draft, the Denver Nightwings select kicker Zach Theo. The 52nd pick belongs to the Queen City Corsairs by way of Mexico City. You're on the clock.
And this is why, Brett, you are one of the best analysts in the game. You said, let's go special teams. They could probably go special teams. You hit it right on the head. I'm going to go right back to you, Brett. So sorry, Jason, I'm skipping over you this time. But, Brett, take it away. Tell us what you were thinking and why Denver went along your line of thought.
Well, special teams is going to be key in this league, and we saw just this past season how automatic kickers were this season. I think there was only a small handful of kickers that missed more than 3 field goals in the season. I think there was more kickers that were perfect in the season than they missed 3. So it's not a shock to me that Denver went with the kicker route. I'm a little bit shocked that they went with Zach Theo instead of Ian Degon, because he was the best kicker available left in that pool. But you can't go wrong with 5'8" and 260 pounds of kicking power in Zach Theo.
No, absolutely. And anything to add there, Jason, on Zach Theo for Denver?
I was thinking maybe they would go ahead and get one of these remaining safeties to add to what they have there, but it makes sense to get the kicker, and maybe now with the other one there, maybe they do take another special teams player and try to go punter and convert over to punter later. Maybe we could see that. I think this is a continuing theme of what we saw last night, where some of the lower overall players do go, and maybe there's something to that with players they see being put on that development squad that progress a little faster if you go a little bit of the lower overall.
That's a good line of thought there, too. And we'll stick with you here, Jason, as we move on to the team that still has the most amount of picks remaining. Queen City have 4 picks here on round number 3 via the way of some trades from last season and some in this offseason as well. Let's walk through. Queen City had a lot of holes they needed to fill coming into the draft. They did a solid job, I thought, with their selections yesterday. But now here comes the big workload. They had 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. They have 4 total this round. They have a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah, you can see they really focused on defense a lot yesterday, didn't they? Just looking here, they took 2 linebackers yesterday. They took Petrilia yesterday. So they focused a lot on that defensive side of the ball. They could still continue to go that way, but there's some nice offensive pieces still sitting out there. I mean, you've still got some top wide receivers and King Alexander left. You still got Nick Twice sitting there. So there are some good guys on the offensive side of the ball. Queen City still need that second running back because there's only one left in Pepe Silva. So if they didn't get that second running back, maybe that's the way to go. But if things hold serve here, we're going to see somebody from the defensive side of the ball go again.
And Pepe Silva, like you said, the only remaining halfback remaining in the minors yet to be drafted. Ash Ketchum got taken. Isaac Knox, Baby Bullets also left. And so it's another option that we can see, and that would really eliminate the halfback, fullback spot for anyone we're looking to try and go there. Maybe a tight end later down the line can convert like Jacob Riley or Arnold Paca. But Brett, you were right on pick number 1. Let's see if you're picked right with number 2 when we come back, because Queen City's first pick of the day is in. Over to you, Cam.
With the 52nd pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Queen City Corsairs select running back Pepe Silva. The 53rd pick is Atlanta. You are on the clock.
Well, how about that? So first off, we get Brett 1 for 1, and all of a sudden Jason becomes 1 for 1 and directly says it's going to be Pepe Silva. Jason, talk about Silva. Now we no longer have any more running backs left in this draft class. Let's talk about what Queen City's looking to do for season 23 or season 22 with Silva.
Apparently, I should have just did the day 2 draft because that's better than anything I picked last night. So Silva comes out of that Albuquerque Adams locker room. You can't go wrong there. They do a good job grooming players to go on and be successful in this league. I'm a product of that system. They tend to branch out and become bigger members of the SFL than just players. So great pickup. Got used a lot, but with their passing attack, with having Iniguez all season, they were kind of pass heavy. But I think Silva is going to progress well, and one of those guys that could end up on that development squad that gets to progress a little bit faster. That's a great pickup, and you fill a need. And now, like you said, that's it. So anybody else who didn't focus on that halfback position in that first round they're going to be figuring something out and being creative.
Or maybe trying to figure something like Carolina and re-signing Harish Prasad to a halfback slot himself. But Brett, Queen City get their second tailback, and as we've seen over the course of the last couple of seasons, having a 2-back system has worked for a number of teams, and now with the recent rule changes, a 2-back system or a backup halfback is going to be much more of a necessity rather than a luxury.
Yeah, it's very much pretty much necessary at this point when you have your running backs that need to quickly sub out after a couple of runs. So you need to have that second running back that's going to be ready, and have someone like Pepe Silva. He's going to be a project player for sure, But it's going to be interesting how Queen City approaches this because they still have Jet Zero, and it's going to be determining on how many carries that Jet Zero is going to get for this Queen City team. And the big thing moving forward is how Queen City is going to fill out the rest of that roster, because like you said, they still have a bevy of picks left to go, and the field of players for certain positions that they probably want is very much dwindling down. So they have to decide pretty soon, have 1A, 2A, 3A options in terms of who they're going to take next.
Absolutely. And now we move on to Atlanta, a former SFL champion. Is now on the clock. They've got 2 picks remaining here today in round number 3 as we start to look at what they could possibly do. Brett, we'll stick with you here and talk me through your thoughts on how Atlanta's done here and just what is Atlanta going to be able to do. They've really been hit or miss in some facets of the last couple of seasons. This past season, however, just not going their way. 3-9 this past season, far cry from their 11-1 closeout in season 20. It's the new era really hit the Swarm pretty hard. What is the biggest need here for Atlanta, just in general, to turn things around in Georgia?
I think a lot of people talked about it in the first night, but when you look at that roster, they are set offensively, especially with picking Henry McGee. That's free money right there because they come into this draft with 27 players. So they get Henry McGee, the highest paid prospect in this draft. So they're going to be set offensively. It's going to be very nice. I wouldn't be too surprised if one of these corners fall off the field. And I would see someone like Bentley Bonner, the guy who just had the interception to seal Nashville's deal to get to the SFL championship game, which is going to be in a few days against Chicago.
All right, we've had both of our analysts be right on the first 2 picks. First kicker, first halfback. Are we going cornerback? 3 for 3, Mr. Cameron Irvine.
With the 53rd pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Atlanta Swarm select cornerback Bentley Bonner. The 54th pick is Queen City by way of Alamo City. You're on the clock.
Can I just say, this day has been absolutely unprecedented. We have been 3 for 3 to begin day number 2. Over to you, Brett Solberg. Take it away.
And it just seemed like the smart decision because Atlanta only has 2 contracted corners. So far on their team, they've got their safeties involved, but it's always good to have that third corner because teams are going to be rocking 4, 5, and potentially 6 receivers this season, so they have to be ready for all aspects of the game. And getting a guy like Bentley Bonner, he might be the shortest guy in this draft at 5'11", 190, but he's got a ton of heart there out on the field. He's going to make an impact in some way, and I think he's going to develop into a very, very fine player for this Atlanta Swarm squad.
Well, don't tell Gunny McGuire about being short and playing cornerback. He'll tell you just right there, size doesn't matter. It's how much talent, how much fight you have in you. Jason Peace, let's talk about Bonner just a little bit more as we watch some more of his game tape.
Well, we're seeing some we're seeing back-to-back players come off the board that were a little bit lower overall, but they're going to fit in nicely. At this point in the draft, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for guys that are come into your locker room, contribute, and be maybe a special weapon. Maybe somebody in punt return, kick return, someone who can work on that speed and get that speed up really, really high. Because we've seen it in the minors, that 99 speed, which he doesn't have, but when you're on that development squad, you can get there a little faster. Getting that speed up fast is worth a good 10 points on a kick or 10 yards on a kick return, and that field position is key.
I completely agree. And as we continue to talk more and more about speed and how speed kills, and maybe a little bit more help in the return game, Brett, we go back to Queen City and we continue to talk about all these picks they've got, and John was making a lot of jokes last night about, they've got like 40 more picks. Well, they only got 3 now. So now it becomes the nitty gritty. Now becomes, now we got to start narrowing down our picks. We saw 1 of 8 of the last remaining defensemen come off the board. Where is Queen City looking now? And the tumultuous era that has been Queen City, not necessarily in a respect you might think, but more in just terms of not being able to finalize a solidified game plan and to try and really push forward and get back to where they were early on in their history.
Yeah, and I think the big key for them is how they're going to retain these upcoming draftees moving forward, because that's going to bring in a new, that's going to usher in a new era for Queen City, an era that they've been trying to usher for what feels like the last 4 or 5 seasons, because it feels like whenever they get a step ahead, there's always something that gets them 2 steps back, whether it be a key player leaving or a key player retiring, or there's just something in terms of game scheming that results in them, being 0-12. And I think they're in a step in the right direction, especially under Tom Welsh. He's one of the smartest guys out there in the league. They've got a great staff over there, and just looking at the roster and what they have left there, there's only 2 safeties left that they can choose from, and they have 2 contracted safeties, both on both sides of the field. I wouldn't be too surprised if they knock one of those guys down. I'm looking at Big O Renfro from Lexington. He might be the guy that gets selected here just because of value alone.
And he's already done a fantastic job, Tom Welsh, of really trying to turn things around and going from an 0-12 team in season 22, a 4-8 final record here in season 21. So things are looking up and looking a lot better for the team in green and black. But Jason, we go to you real quickly here, as I hear the pick might be coming in rather quickly. Your thought? Who is Queen City picking here?
Well, I think Big O Renfro was probably the pick, but let's look out for maybe Nick Twice here, wide receiver. Maybe they went defense yesterday and they're going to focus offense today.
He was already being hyped up. The first ever chat in this stream was Garrison Blues, Nick Twice, Nick Twice, Nick Twice. And so maybe, just maybe, Nick gets his name called here for Queen City. Over to you, Mr. Kamaraman.
With the 54th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Queen City Corsairs select wide receiver Xavier Knight. Arizona is on the clock by way of Tulsa with pick 55.
And so it is a wide receiver, but it is not Nick Twice. Xavier Knight gets the call, Mr. Brett Solberg. Let's talk a little bit more about what Xavier brings to the table in Buffalo.
And again, it's that versatility there. He's going to be the 4th receiver, and that was another position I was thinking I believe it's just the 4th receiver on that set, because they didn't take one in the first night from what I can see. So I think getting that 4th receiver is going to be very good, because then you can spread that out into quads, get that into some empty set formations, which is going to help for teams that are anticipating, playing against, the Baltimores and the Floridas and the Seattles, who like to score in bunches. And if you're going to fall behind, you're going to need all receivers to be prepared. And getting someone like Xavier Knight, who hasn't been a shining piece to Pittsburgh's offense as much as, say, someone like a Timothy Amosun King, now Harana Queen Jackson. But it's going to be an effective pick nonetheless. So I like this pick from all facets for Queen City.
And as we know, Jason, not everyone is the most highly rated prospect, but it just shows there's a lot of players that go in later rounds of draft that we see stick through multiple seasons and eventually become that dynamic name, the player that everyone starts to call and look for to be the big playmaker. Queen City are going to have to do that with Xavier Knight as well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it even adds a little chip on the shoulder there. So it's like if you don't get drafted where you think your value was, it adds a little fuel to the fire to be more than what people think you were. So they saw something in Nick, or they saw something in Xavier that they grabbed, and good on them. They have lots of ways to use players as wide receiver. I mean, we've seen wide receiver in the backfield. over the SFLM season. I don't know that we'll see that a lot in the pros with the better tackling and the better hit causing fumbles, but you never know how they're going to get to use people.
And so we go from Buffalo for a time now. We'll be back to Buffalo here shortly. Still got 2 more picks left to go here in round number 3. We go from what more often is referred to as maybe the frozen tundra near Niagara Falls down to the sands and desert in Zona in Phoenix, where Eddie Gage and Ashley Jackson and company will continue to deliberate as they are now on the clock with the 55th pick here in the season 22 SFL rookie draft. And Brett, the big news so far is there's still no Moses. Moses has not signed his contract for Arizona, and so the thought is maybe they're still trying to think. They did pick up another tailback in the draft with their only other pick last night, being Bismarck Wright. Where is Arizona going to do? It was very different seeing an Eddie Gage-led team not go defense with one of the top picks.
Well, I wouldn't be too surprised if they went defense on this matter here. I think that Eddie still trusts in DJ to get signed. They still have until, I believe it's Thursday, before the roster freeze comes into effect. So as long as they can get DJ going and get that contract signed by that deadline of Thursday, they'll be okay. And they still have Bismarck Wright to fall on. He's not going to be like the main tailback that we would expect being a starter, but it's still someone they can put out on the field. I'm looking at that team, and again, I'm looking at just 2 contracted safeties, one on the free side, one on the strong side, and you got 2 safeties left in this draft. So if you don't take them now, they're probably going to be gone pretty quickly here.
And Arizona falling short in the playoffs. It was a pretty strong season, Jason, for the Scorpions, being one of the better teams on first down and just in total offensive yards. The offense, we know it can hum. The defense, however, had a little hiccups here and there, mainly through the passing attack. They were right around maybe close to 230 average passing yards a game, which is right around middle of the pack. Where could one of the final defensive backs that we still see in this draft help Eddie Gage and company in that regard?
Well, I mean, you plug Renfro in back there, and it's you alluded to this in yesterday's draft. Injuries can really change the face of the game. So having that depth back there and just having a fresh face sometimes in that secondary will help. And also, I mean, we look at they have no choice now at running back anyway, and they do have the 2 fullbacks. So maybe is Moses coming back or not? Maybe not. Maybe they're going to run with Wright and the 2 fullbacks back there. So yeah, I think Renfro has to go off the board here. 74 overall, he's a big time player, and I think you'll see him join that secondary there in Arizona.
9-3 end to their regular season. One of the were able to capitalize on a decent schedule, only falling to Baltimore in the quarterfinals after taking down the Central Division champion Minnesota Legend in that game, just unable to deny the running game of Baltimore. And maybe one of these defensive backs also can help out a little bit in run support when needed, which especially when Baltimore were able to spread the ball out and really try and maneuver things with Warren Murray and company. It just became a little bit more interesting. And things continue to become more interesting as Arizona failed to make a selection or trade the pick, which moves that pick back to the end of the draft, which means San Diego is now on the clock. Is the first time in quite some time that we have seen this, Brett Solberg. This is quite interesting. San Diego's now able to jump forward and grab somebody.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this in ages at this point. And you have to understand from Arizona's standpoint is that maybe they were hoping for Pepe Sylvia to drop on them as kind of a fallback plan if DJ wasn't going to sign. I would be personally fine if Arizona had 3 starting running backs available to them because they could, kind of jumble around their offensive sets so that DJ could have a rest every now and again. He doesn't have to be a 2,000-yard receiver like he was, or 2,000-yard running back, I should say, So it's really a shock. And now we're going to move things over to San Diego, which, I got to figure this out, but I think there might be some opportunity for them to really make some noise now that they moved up a pick.
We just go ahead and update everything real quick. Jason capitalizing on opponents' miscues is often referred to in more of a game plan or just on the field thing, but now a more logistical challenge comes into view for a draft perspective. We're now with a limited number of players remaining in the draft pool. How does San Diego capitalize?
I was going to say maybe they were jumping up to get that safety, but man, they have 4 on the roster already. They know something. I mean, we've got one defensive end left, I believe. Maybe RC Puff here. Maybe they want to add to that linebacking core and move and play him on the defensive line in some kind of rushman package.
And we continue to move along here as San Diego encroaches on the halfway mark. Don't want to see a second pick fall the wayside for another team. And as we quickly touch on the Mavericks and their season, it was a season which a lot of people thought that the Mavericks would have some sort of advantage with Mike O'Neal being one of the biggest testers and leaders for this new era of the SFL. But San Diego, while it was only their second winning season in the SFL, they just weren't able to really capitalize. They go into the playoffs, they take down DC by 1 point in the wild card round. They faced eventual champions, the Florida Storm, and lose on the road 38-17. Where do they improve? How do they improve? We find out now. Over to Cameron Irvine for San Diego's pick.
With the 56th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the San Diego Mavericks select outside linebacker RC Puff. The 57th pick is Jacksonville by way of Fort Worth. You are on the clock.
And so one of the remaining defensemen come off the board. It is RC Puff. There was a lot of admiration from the panel last night. And now, after Arizona unable to locate a pick, able to find a pick, San Diego swoops RC Puff off the board. Jason, over to you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I was when you asked about that, I went straight to San Diego what they were going to do to Arizona. So yeah, if you look, I mean, they needed some line depth, and I think linebackers are going to be the answer. And Puff is sitting there on the board. He was a great piece of that Pittsburgh puzzle. This season we played against him, and he blew us up multiple times at the line. Great in pursuit. I think that's going to be a good pickup for San Diego there, and I think we're going to see him on the line a little bit this season, maybe in that defensive end spot in dime situations.
Brett, how much did you see of RC Puff this SFLM season, and what do you like about him?
RC is definitely. I see him as like it's not to be rude or anything like that, but very much a poor man's Stuart Gotts in terms of very great in terms of goal line defense. So we saw that a lot in their last game against Nashville. A lot of key stops in certain moments to stop Stanley Younger, who was, very key in Nashville, getting the win over Pittsburgh in that tight contest. But RC has that ability to get past that get past the line and get to the running backs just as quick as any other linebacker would in the SFL. So it's a fantastic pick for San Diego. I wouldn't be too shocked because now that's their 4th outside linebacker that they've selected. So they're going to have to move at least one of those linebackers to the inside, teach them how to play that Mike role. But it's going to be surprising how they're going to figure out that defensive set now, because they still have only, I believe, 2 contracted defensive linemen, which is going to be a little bit of a difficult process if you're trying to get sacks in the SFL with just those 2 players.
And I know in college we see a lot of maybe 2-5, two traditional linemen and a lot of extra linebackers, a lot of outside linebackers because they're able to move around in college, but not necessarily in a professional level like this. And so with Puff being able to stop an inside line game, Puff might be a good candidate to move to the inside and stop the interior run as we move on to Jacksonville, their first pick of day 2, round 3. They have a back-to-back pick, now picks 71 and 72, coming up later, but now comes the point where a couple of the defensemen come off the board. Only 6 remain. Only 6 names remain on the defensive side of the ball, and only 2 kickers remain as far as the special teams go. So, Jason, Duval has been an interesting team to watch over the seasons. It has not been, it has been far from a season of prosperity for Jacksonville over the last few seasons. 3-9, 2-10, now 4-8. So they have improved, but now they have to get back to 500 is the next big and crucial step for them, in my personal opinion. With a division that is always going to be tough now in that East Division, now adding in one other team that escapes me. Where does Jacksonville go here? Pick is already in. Let's get your quick thoughts here on Jacksonville.
I think they continue to go defense here. They got Haynes. They got the wide receiver. They got their corner. They got a safety yesterday. They got a second tight end. I think this is where you see big overflow come off the board.
All right, over to Cameron Irvine with the call.
With the 57th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Jacksonville Kings select wide receiver King Alexander. Queen City, you're on the clock with pick 58.
For so long, King was in chat saying, I'm right here. I'm still here. And he gets his name called for the Kings. Another wide receiver comes off the board here for Jacksonville, Brett. That just adds another weapon for the Kings to look to.
And again, getting a 5th wide receiver to get that empty 5 receiver set if they want to bring that out. And that's going to be another big target. You've got Connor Weston, who's 6'4", Kingston Ellington, who's 6'5", Joe Beasley, who's 6'5". Now you bring in King Alexander, who's going to be 6'3". You've got all these big targets that OJ Bruin can throw the rock to at any point. And adding King Alexander, probably, in my opinion, the top prospect available starting round 3. And getting him in that position is going to be a fantastic. And they had like Jason stated, they got a receiver earlier in that second round by getting Jonathan Haynes, and now getting a 5th receiver. It just opens up the offensive playbook, and I think that's the big key for Jacksonville, so they can really figure things out offensively, because we've seen games where they destroy Atlanta in week 14 and score 52 points, but there's also games where we see them struggle to get 17 against top talent. So if they can spread out that offense, it's going to pay dividends for them, and it might turn them into a 6-6 team or even better.
One word that I can use to describe King, Mr. Peace, is loud, both in chat and on the field as well.
He is an outspoken dude, I tell you. But in the locker room, man, he is a supportive teammate. He needs to get on Eddie's show and say everything with his chest, because that's what he does. I love the guy, though, man. And I'm telling you what, another guy that gets his progressions in. He listens to advice from his coaches. They're getting a great talent. I was kind of hoping he would drop a couple more picks and end up in Houston with us, but I'm glad to see him go there. He gets to go play with Havo, and boy, Jacksonville just really loaded up in the Philly locker room and took a lot of Philly players through this draft.
Seems they like the not the Pacific, but the Atlantic Northeast in that regard. So King Alexander goes the way of Jacksonville, and we go back to a team we'll call at least one more time here in this draft. It's the Queen City Corsairs back on the clock. And Jason, let's stick with you and talk a little bit more about Queen City. We've talked almost extensively, had plenty of time to talk about where they could go. They just picked up Xavier Knight at wide receiver. They picked up Pepe Silva. It's been a run on offensive players for the Corsairs. We were thinking this where they might go at defense. Well, now the only players, at least in as far as the front seven goes, are King McNeely and Maurice Williams, linebacker and defensive lineman respectively. Is this another opportunity for them to go ahead and snag one now before we have to wait about maybe 8 or 9 picks?
You know, if one thing I've learned about these last couple of days is expect the unexpected. So we came into this figuring there'd be a run on these defensive players since there was only a few left, and now we're seeing a run on offensive players. You know, maybe since they don't have a lot of offensive line depth, maybe they tight end route here just to get that extra blocking in there. Maybe Cables McGill comes off the board here. If not, then if it's defense, it's got to be Renfro. But maybe we see that third tight end just for a little bit of extra bump in that running game.
Over to you, Brett Solberg, and we've talked extensively about Queen City, and let's start more talking about the future of the Corsairs. Where are they headed? What's the one thing you could change about Queen City that would have them go from a team that is struggling to find form, struggling to piece things together at times? Where is the solution? What's the solution?
If you want me to be critical, take $1 million off Anthony Wayo's salary. But if we want to be actually just looking at it from a perspective of the team, they're set defensively because they have one of the best corners in the league. They've got Wayo, which I've criticized. I think 2.6 is way too much salary. I've said this in the Around the SFL podcast. I think that's way too much salary. They've got Ted Haynes at almost 1.8. They've got Justin Reside at 1.75. And they've got Brandon Ewing at almost 1.4. So that's going to be top-end talent in the corners, which is why I called them Las Vegas Light at the podcast as well, because they have all these talents in the safety spots. Personally, it's either going to be safety, it's going to be Big O Renfro, or they're going to convert one of the last 2 kickers as punter. I wouldn't be too surprised if Jackson Arthur gets off the board.
Final knockings of the selection on its way here for Queen City. We might see the pick coming shortly, just as the buzzer sounds here for the end of their pick. Hopefully would not want to see another repeat of, if you've just missed it, just a few picks ago, Arizona's pick had to be forfeited, and now they will pick at the end of the draft instead of picking sooner, which gives opportunities for teams like Queen City to come in and take what might have been Arizona's. So we go back to Cameron Irvine for Queen City's next selection.
With the 58th pick in the Season 22 SFL Rookie Draft, the Queen City Corsairs select tight end Arnold Paca. The 59th pick is Motor Cities. You are on the clock.
Jason, you said they might add some help on that offensive line at the tight end spot, and there goes Paca off the board for the Corsairs. Walk us through Paca.
Let's see here. Paca comes out of another one of the San Jose Flight players. We didn't get to play San Jose this season, so I didn't get a lot of looks at him. 53 overall, one of the, a little bit, but there's not a big gap between him and McGill. I mean, you're talking about 53 to 56. Again, probably someone that's going to end up on that development squad that gets to progress a little bit quicker than at the pro level. I think at this point they feel like they filled a lot of defensive needs. So adding that tight end to add for some pass block and some run block was the way to go.
And back to you now, Brett, on Paca, and we're seeing a lot more teams able to realize that, hey, we can have a player, we can have a couple extra tight ends and really try and solidify not only having the opportunity to have a backup tight end in case one gets hurt, but having more help in goal-to-go situations in a very tight, need to be heavy, need to be tough, need to have an extra help on the offensive line when that situation requires.
Yeah, but I don't understand a third tight end personally for Queen City when in all reality they should probably grab a third safety. Arnold Pock, a great talent and everything like that, but when you're playing behind James Matthew Jr., who's making almost $2 million, and Abad Ruiz Jr., who is a great talent. We had him last season at Vancouver. He's got plenty of potential to be a star in this league, but at the end of the day, when you have a third tight end, where's he going to play? Special teams? Is that about it? So I'm not sure what Queen City's thinking with this pick, other than just adding for depth and hoping that these tight ends don't get injured in games. But I think they should have went with a different route, but I'm not controlling Queen City. I've got another team to worry about, so it's on them. And Arnold Pock is going to be a great player for them in the locker room for sure.
And you talked about injuries and depth, and what happens when one of your two safeties gets injured in that regard. We saw it happen to Baltimore in the championship game, as we talked about last night, which we're talking about now. And so it can always happen. Injuries can always happen. As we move on to the Motor City V8s here in round number 3, their first of 2 picks. They have now picked 67 as well. Let's talk a little bit more about Motor City. Brett Solberg had a couple of picks. I liked a couple of their picks. They had 2 last night. They picked up their quarterback with their first pick. And now what do they do here with their 3rd round pick?
Yeah, and it felt like it was the worst kept secret in the league that Motor City was going to take King Jackson with the 9th overall pick, and then they go out and grab BB Bullets, who's going to be behind Taranio Rivera in the halfback depth chart. And now it's up. Motor City is always the biggest question mark in the league because of their mad scientist style of roster building. So they could go with a 4th tight end for all we know because they love their tight ends in this league. Example of Phil Koss and Azami Mahata being $5 million of their cap space being accrued. But just looking at that roster again, looking down through it, I wouldn't be too shocked if King McNeely gets picked here because they only have 1 contracted linebacker. There's still 2 corners left out there to select from in K Magic and Sidney Galloway. Either one of those 2 would help out as a good 4th corner. And they don't have a contracted free safety, so you might see Renfro go here, and we've said his name about up 10 million times at this stage, but he's huge. He is a huge option to grab because I feel like he is SFL ready and he could make an impact right away, but they can go anywhere at this point and it would just be a non-shocker because that's the Motor City way.
And so the Motor City selection is in. We head now to Commissioner Cameron Irvine with pick number 58.
With 58th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Motor City V8s select outside linebacker King McNeely, Carolina. You are on the clock with the 59th selection.
We have seen plenty of Kings come off the board, and I don't think any of them besides Alexander have gone to the Kings, and so King McNeely goes the way of the linebacker. Brett, you were on the money with McNeely.
Yeah, and they only had Rodney Panani, who's a decent talent at the linebacker spot, but it's definitely one of the holes that they needed to fill. And with 1 linebacker left in this draft to choose from, it almost felt like a no-brainer for Motor City to go that way. So it's a great pick to get King McNeely as well. He's got tons of potential. He's a raw talent, but he's going to make himself known in that Motor City defense because he has the capability of showing up in games. So a great pick from Motor City, and I think that's going to work well for the defense.
He's able to just be around the center of the field and make the sure tackle there. Jason, what do you like about McNeely?
I mean, it obviously fills a need, but I think they could have done this. They could have took Jackson way later in that first round and used this pick on a star defensive player to fill a hole. I mean, who else was going to take a quarterback other than saying, "Hey, we make you feel good. We're going to make you a top 10 pick." I think they missed the boat on some of these defensive players early and filling some of these holes. So it's about time they fill one. They better hope they score a lot of points because defensively, I mean, just they finally filled a linebacker, or a spot where they might be able to put a linebacker, I guess, maybe. But they've just got a lot of holes on defense to fill. So then there's hardly anything left. So maybe the draft didn't fall the way they wanted to. But King Jackson was a great quarterback to have, but I think you could have got him here and focused on defense earlier in the draft.
They did struggle last season on the ground, one of the bottom 7 teams in terms of rush yards against, and so McNeely comes in and will be a very welcome sight on that defensive side for the V8s. As we move on to Carolina, Jason, the Skyhawks, the biggest question over the seasons is what has been Carolina's identity. They come in, they pick up May Carter in the first round, and they grab J.C. Wallace in the second round. Their third and final pick of this draft. Now, where do the Skyhawks go?
They could use a little more help maybe in the secondary. Maybe now we're going to keep, it's just kind of like the last night where we said Olin Thump and Carly Fords all night long. We're going to say Big O Renfro's name until somebody picks him. But if we go back to that, expect the unexpected. Nick Twice is still sitting there. CJ Parrish is still sitting there at wide receiver, and maybe they go their 5th wide out. There's a lot of wide receiver depth still left, so not really a big need for that. But hey, let's get Big O off the board so that way we don't have to say his name.
Well, knowing the Prasad brothers and knowing Skippy Curtis, the GM over there, and Brett, Nick Twice just seems like a match made in football drafting heaven for the Skyhawks.
Very true. I'm thinking that they go with the traditional corner route, though. There's, again, K-Magic or Sidney Galloway, both great Carolina names as well. If you think about it at the end of the day, especially Sidney Galloway, I think that might be the one pick. I wouldn't be too surprised. Again, I'm going to throw that option out there. Kicker turning into a punter. There's still 2 left. They don't have a contracted punter, and punters can make a difference in this league, and I think some teams need to realize that a little bit, because that'll add an extra 10 to 15 yards of field that the opposing offenses need to play against in comparisons to a non-contracted punter. So I think getting one of those 2 would be great. And let's throw another one out there. Hey, why not have a backup for Matt South? We've had problems with Matt South getting injured in Carolina before. There is some type of voodoo magic going on where one of their star players offensively goes down, whether it be Harish Prasad for the 49th time or it be Matt South in key critical situations. So hey, Chad Moore's out there. Let's see if they want to go with the 2 QB route.
You guys can't see it, but whenever you the joke you made with Prasad, when you can get the commissioner laughing off screen, is the first time I can commentate on just seeing the reactions behind the scene of a certain SFL commissioner. It's always fun to see his reactions, especially when you can do it at the expense of one of the memes of the SFL himself, Mr. Harish Prasad, always injured. As we move along now, Carolina. Things that we're looking up, they had this dynamic of growing, going 6-6 in season 19. They go 7-5 in season 20, and then they revert. They revert to under 500 after a string of losses to end the season. Charleston, Canton, and Baltimore, two of the 3 final games at home, just unable to get back on the horse and really find some footing. And the strangest thing, Jason, about Carolina is 2 of their 5 wins, only 2 of their 5 wins came at home. And so having someone that's going to come in and establish a presence in that locker room to say, we need to defend home. Home is priority number 1. Which player best describes and best emulates that out of the remaining?
Ooh, boy, you throw me some zingers. That's a good one. I mean, Lord, I didn't, one of the things this season is I tried to stay out of game chat as much as I could. I watched game chat. I tried not to stay in it too much. So that's for me where your locker room presence comes from as much as anything, is these guys that are in the game, staying positive. So really, man, I'll refer back to you. What do you think? Because you got me on that one.
Oh man, if I had to take my pick of the litter, I very, very rarely look in game chat myself. It's one thing that Now, as I'm starting to get back into the SFL, as I have to get, I have to look back in game chat and start to interact with a lot more folks. I haven't done a whole lot of that, especially in the guys in Indy can tell you firsthand. I'm not very active in chat, and that's again, I'm much more of an in-person kind of guy. I don't often do that.
Well, I think part of it is too. We're getting to some of the quieter players in the league.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no secret there. If you look at progressions and things like that, we're getting down to some of the guys that maybe aren't as vocal, and that's why they're sitting here in the draft.
And we do have a trade. Minnesota trades the 63rd pick and a next season 4th round selection for the current pick. And so now Minnesota comes back on the clock. My home state, and fortunately / unfortunately, my rival here in the SFL, Brett. Let's talk about the land of 10,000 Lakes just a little bit now after the trade.
Yeah, and this came to me as a shock because I thought Carolina would actually, fill out another roster spot. But for them, they don't see somebody that's standing out to them right away that they necessarily need to grab them, which means they're going to move 4 spots down over to 63 as part of the deal. And now just looking at Minnesota, there are a couple of holes that they can fill, but they have selected a lot of guys. They took Isaac Knox with the 14th pick. They got back-to-back picks and got Jubilee Marsh and Shin Yoneda. Great duo to pick, by the way. And now, looking at that roster from what they need, man, it's so tough to say where they can go. They could go with a second tight end option. There are still a couple left out on the board. Cables McGill would be a great pick for them personally.
And I know a few teams have gone with having multiple tight ends. Now we've seen Indianapolis, the rivals, come in and pick up another tight end earlier in the draft as well. They came in and took, name escapes me, I'm so sorry, Jimmy Wint from Pittsburgh yesterday. Now, the biggest question for Minnesota is, do they try and emulate that, Jason?
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think you're going to see tight ends down. Now you're just looking at players that you can find a creative spot for. So I think McGill would be a great fit right here. I think Brett nailed this one, and I can't take credit for it.
The Minnesota Legend were the benefactors of a very crazy and topsy-turvy Season 21 in that Central Division, where all 4 teams in that Central Division finished the season at 4-8, and due to a wild series of tiebreakers, the Legend, which looked so strong at the beginning of the season, fell off the bandwagon and came away with the final win on the road in Tulsa to bring themselves back up to 4-8 and clinch the division. How do the Central Division champions move forward? We go to Cameron Irvine with the call for their pick.
Many things to say. Just to clarify on the kicker punter thing, if the player declared that they were a special teams coach, kicker punter at the start of their career, then they would be eligible. You can contact either the player or deputy commissioner for more information on that. And Tyler, we finally got a pick. It feels like forever. I was losing all my airtime with these guys. Anyway, that's just fine. I've been making mistakes all weekend. With the 59th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Minnesota Legends select tight end Robert Henson Jr. The 60th pick is Portland. You are on the clock.
And so it is a tight end, but not the one we were expecting, Mr. Brett Zolberg.
Yeah, and I had a feeling they were going to go with a tight end position. I was thinking it was Cables McGill because he is the top prospect left on the board, but Robert Henson Jr. is not a bad option either. Another big body option that Minnesota can go with there to go alongside Jason France, the 6'7" leaning tower of Pisa, I like to call him, even though that's in Italy and not in France. But nonetheless, you want to have those 2 tight ends because then it gives you options on the line that gives you that protection and especially if they want to get Colin Hart involved, because he had such an explosive first half to the season, and then he died off like a fly getting hit by a swatter in that second half of the season, which resulted in Minnesota struggling to get 4 wins in the season. So it's great. It's a great protection option to get someone like Henson Jr. who can step up right away and be an option to be that, you know, blocking lineman and catch the occasional catch.
And so I'm also hearing Henson is also a Minnesota native who follows fellow native Isaac Knox also back home to St. Paul, and a lot of folks from Minnesota join the league. I feel a lot less special than how I did before, but it's always good to see more of the Minnesotans get involved here, and especially here in the SFL. And Jason, we go to you again. Robert Henson Jr., the tight ends, the extra outside line blocking on the offense. It always rings a little bit more. You have a little bit more faith in the outside run game and an extra option for the pass game as well.
Yeah, I think Brett nailed it on the head. I mean, they come out of the gates, just looks like they were going to rush for 3,000 yards after that first game, and then kind of trailed off a little bit. So yeah, anything you can do to get an extra hat on a hat in that run game and create some seams for these running backs is going to make a big difference. Especially again going into a new change with zero stamina. We don't know exactly how these running backs are going to perform. So if you have a star running back and then you have your backup, who might be a little bit stepped down, providing him with that extra protection, that extra run blocking in the running game is going to be key. I think the Minnesota thing is because y'all can't go outside for 8 months out of the year. So yeah, of course you got to join the Simulation Football League.
Well, if we join the Simulation Football League, if we're not doing well, I mean, we're always outside. We're always fishing. It seems. Always fishing. Either way, we're on a boat or in an ice house, or if we're not doing that, we're golfing. So, that's to go. That takes care of the Minnesota pick. As we go on to the boats, aka the Portland Fleet. They get on the clock, and all of a sudden they're right on the docket. The ship has arrived in port on time. And who are they picking up, Cam and Irvine?
With the 60th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Portland Fleet select cornerback Sidney Galloway. The 61st pick is Houston. You are on the clock.
Sidney Galloway gets the call for the Portland Fleet, and they've had a history of very good defensive backs. Brett, let's talk about your Pacific rivals.
Oh man, this past season, they were pretty much the pests of the league, weren't they? Because they had that dynamic defense that felt like they were unstoppable for a 1 month span of the season, and slowly teams started to figure them out, and they could have been a dark horse to be a potential playoff team, but things just didn't fall their way, and now they're looking to reload this season. And I think the scariest part is going to be that dual running back set of Ezekiel Love and Scott Johnson. But picking up Sidney Galloway gives them a fourth corner, which is going to help out against those teams that have a lot of wide receivers, Vancouver included. We got 5, so that's going to be scary to kind of face off against. But looking at Portland, secondary was something that they needed. They picked up Bub Your Bruiser to help out the defensive line, to get that third defensive lineman so they could potentially play a 3-4 style defense. And now they've got that fourth corner in Sidney Galloway to help things out. They could have picked up Big O Renfro, again mentioning him for like the 27th time now already at this point. But Sidney Galloway's still a great pick for them because it helps out with that passing defense.
And having a hat on a hat, Jason, especially with division rivals Vancouver and others going with 5 wide receivers, just having an extra defensive back out there, a speedier guy that can catch up and get involved in the passing lanes, is always good to have.
Yeah, and I think we saw, at the beginning of the season, running backs were the thing to have, and running backs were killing everybody. And as the season went on, teams started to figure it out. So maybe this season we see teams really open things up and go with a lot of 5 wide sets and spread the ball out, or even just going 5 wide and still running the ball is kind of effective. So having the bodies out there to get blocks on the secondary. So if you're going to see a lot of 5 wide sets, you're going to need a lot of DBs back there too.
And so now we move on to H-Town. Houston now is on the clock, and the Houston Headhunters with a couple of solid picks. Jason, let's go and run by you. Where I know you're not in the draft room, but you've given a lot of insight. Actually, we'll just get to you after the pick. Picks are coming thick and fast now. Everybody, there's not too many names to choose from, and we're going thick and fast. Over to Cameron Irvine again.
With the 61st pick in the SFL Season 22 Rookie Draft, the Houston Headhunters select wide receiver C.J. Parrish. The 62nd pick is Motor City. You're back on the clock.
C.J. Parrish gets his name called for Houston. Jason, what'd you guys see in Houston with C.J., and how is he going to help out your passing attack?
Well, now we're one of the teams that just went 5 with the 5 wide receivers. We loaded up on some defensive talent. We picked we picked Wendy and Daisy yesterday at tight end. I kind of knew this was coming. We were going to focus on that wide receiver spot with this pick. CJ is going to come right in. We brought in Ryan Davis this year to join the stable as Mike St. Green and DR Sim and Greg Corky, who have kind of been there for what seems like forever. So now adding Ryan and adding CJ is going to bring a little fresh faces to the team, and can't wait to see him in the locker room and get to know him.
The word that comes to mind now, Brett, is chock full of wide receiver and receiving targets now. 5 receivers on the roster, 3 tight ends on the roster, 2 halfbacks. There is going to be a lot of people to try and get involved for Dave Burr and company in Houston.
Yeah, and 4 of those receivers is going to have target battles with the legend himself, the guy that I'm about 28 million yards behind, DR Sim, and managed to get those targets out of him. But you still have to worry about Madison Square Garden and Mike St. Green himself. You got Greg Corky, you got Ryan Davis, now you add CJ Parrish to the mix, and he's another big body talent that you can, put in your offense that can really get, the odd target here and there. I wouldn't be too shocked if they put him on special teams as a kick returner so that he can get a little bit more looks in terms of having the football, because it might be nice to have 5 receivers, but it can also be a bloated field where you have to worry about, trying to spread your targets so well. And sometimes there's going to be games where your 3rd, 4th, and 5th receivers don't get any targets just because they're either not open or that's just not how the game is dictated. So it's a great pick to get that 5th receiver, and I think it's going to be a great special teams option to get Parrish involved.
And so let's go ahead and reset quick. 1 hour gone here on day 2 of the Season 22 SFL Rookie Draft. I'm Tyler Falk, joined by Brett Solberg and Jason Peace. Glad you can join us here for the final round of draft coverage tonight or this morning or whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. We are glad that you have joined us this time of day. You put that in yourselves. So many people in chat saying, hey, Ron Haynes is here, prime time. CJ Parrish has also joined in. Who just got drafted from Houston. Doug Day, Bryant Dynasty, and so many others. Good to see everybody here. We are hoping that everything is well with you. And well, happy holidays. It's already past Christmas time. It's already past Hanukkah, and I think Kwanzaa is also. I'm trying to remember all of the holidays we've got going here. But happy holidays to you and yours, and may the new year bring you much needed happiness and comfort as we close in on the new year as well. Hope 2024 is a good one for you. As we move on to pick number 62, it is the Motor City V8s who jump in and jump on the clock. They earlier, just a few picks ago, picked up King McNeely, an outside linebacker. Brett, let's go back to you. Where do the V8s go now? With very limited options on the defensive side of the ball, might they go back to a wide receiver?
I wouldn't be too shocked if they went with a 5th wide receiver and really just spread out that offense, because they love their options for receivers. They've got their 3 tight ends, they've got 4 receivers, and King Jackson is going to have a bevy of people to throw at. Man, whenever we talk about Motor City, it always leaves me guessing more than assuming, because again, I talk about how unpredictable they are in terms of their roster style. So they could go anywhere at this point. They could grab another quarterback if they want to, and have Ibrahim Krieta go sit in the owner's booth if they want to. So let's just throw quarterback out there. Chad Moore once again. Woo!
There we go. Over to Cameron Irvine with the call.
$2 super chat from Ray. Smash that like button, people. Thank you very much for that. I think we got near 100 likes on the rookie draft video from last night, so good job, everyone, on that. With the 62nd pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Motor City V8 select defensive end Maurice Williams. Carolina is back on the clock with the 63rd pick.
And so the final defensive lineman comes off the board. It's Maurice Williams, Jason Peace. Now the remaining, if I do my Tyler maths right, I think that's 12 or 13 more teams are a little out of luck. We're trying to find one. Maurice Williams falls to Motor City. And how does Maurice plug and play in Detroit?
He's gonna fill another spot on that defensive line. I was kind of with Brett. I was kind of hoping for quarterback here, and I don't. Why do things that make sense now? But I was gonna go with Dots with that 77 speed there for Motor City. But Maurice Williams, good player. I think he's a little young in his career, but he's gonna come in and he's gonna jump right into that. And who knows how they're gonna use him? It's gonna be not a lot of plug and play stuff, but maybe just some versatility.
And versatility is a common occurrence here with a lot of these picks. We're going to see them in a lot of different types of capacities, and special teams is going to be one where we're going to see a lot of them to start off with first. They're going to be able to shine on a few kickoffs, maybe make a special teams play or two. We've seen some onside kicks nearly get turned for a touchdown, and so even defensive linemen that come off late in the game, and Maurice Williams, will get their shot. We'll get their shot on that Motor City defense, but we might see them more. We might see a lot of folks more or less in special teams before we see them on the defensive line themselves.
Yeah, that's going to be the big key is moving forward. I think these last, I would say 20 picks of this draft are probably going to stay in that developmental team, which means they're going to develop at a faster rate than most of the players in the league, which is going to help them, maybe not next season, but the season after, become high impact players for whatever team they land on moving forward. So the players have to remember is that it's not a race at the end of the day. Your player isn't going to be that star right away for certain teams, especially when it comes to like third rounds of these drafts here. You're going to be project players that, these owners, these coaches, these staff members are willing to help you mold into whatever type of player that you want to be. So it's all about patience with these players. But the big thing moving forward is that, yes, they're going to have a lot of special teams moments, and they're going to have some spot moments in either the offense or the defense. So they have to be prepared for whenever that time occurs.
And now we move on to the Sky Gang, aka the Carolina Skyhawks, are back on the clock after trading this pick away originally to Minnesota Legend in place of a couple other picks, and including a fourth rounder from next season. We talked a little bit about what their identity, what they could be trying to do, what their identity could be, but the big question now here, Jason, is now they traded back. Now they see what other teams are doing. They saw Robert Henson come off the board. They saw Sidney Galloway come off the board. CJ Parrish off the board. Now Maurice Williams. Now it's either DB or offensive weapon for them.
Yeah, at some point there's gonna have you're gonna have to have a run on these wide receivers that are still there. But I mean, last season they scored 254 points and gave up 345. So obviously they need to shore up this defense, and there's only 3 defensive players left. You got to go with either Magic, Renfro, or Lopez here if you're going to work on that defensive side of the ball, which they have addressed. So, and it could go anyway. I don't think we see the backup quarterback come in just yet. So we'll go with let's just keep saying Renfro. Go Renfro.
Go Renfro. Go Renfro. There's something to be said, Brett, about just general publicity on draft shows. We hype a player up. We want to see a player get going, And once that player comes off the board, it's all the more relieving, not just for the player, but for everybody else on the draft panel as well. But let's walk through what Carolina has to do, especially in a tough division for them coming up in season 22.
I think overall, oh man, it's tough to figure out what Carolina, because they got May Carter and then they got J.C. Wallace, and then they moved down here from the Minnesota pick. And again, they could really go any route with that. Like, I'm throwing up the option for QB2 mainly because you want to have that insurance dependent on whether or not Matt South goes down. I'm looking at it as well. They could possibly go with the second tight end. There's only 2 left out on there. But right now, I don't think Carolina's going to make that pick.
No, in fact, another trade. It is now Carolina is receiving the 74th, the penultimate pick, and for a last round pick, they're also going to get Florida's second round pick from next season. Florida is receiving the 63rd overall pick, aka the current one. So a little bit of a bang for your buck move. The Skyhawks have turned 1 pick now into 3 different picks. Carolina has done a fantastic job trading away the picks, and Florida is looking at this pick and seeing something that, hey, we got to pick our guy now, otherwise we're done. Jason.
Yeah, well, either that, or we also maybe Carolina is really just shopping those picks. So maybe they see that maybe they are done and just seeing what they can get going into next season. They got Tarantino. They got their 4th wide receiver. Maybe they go Nick Twice here and get that 5th wide receiver, like everyone else is doing and opening things up.
And Brett, now with Florida back on the clock after the trade, again, wide receiver's an option. It seems to me that whoever Florida is looking at here is someone that they need to grab now, and they have someone in mind that they cannot wait any longer to go and grab here in the later stages.
Yeah, and they already grabbed 2 guys where I think if they didn't pick them then, they probably would have been picked on the next selection. They got Bobby Tarantino at the end of the 1st round, and then Theo Grant Petty in the 2nd round. I actually talked to Theo Grant, and a decent guy all around, so I really like that pick for Florida. But now looking forward here, they've got their line set up. They've got that 4th receiver already. This might be the Big O Renfro pick because they do need a backup free safety. Just because I'm looking at every other position out there, they could go with a 4th corner. There is just the lone left in K Magic, but I don't really see them going quarterback. I don't really see them going really on the offensive side of the ball. I think this is going to be their last defensive pick, and they just wanted to go up so they can grab them before it gets too late.
Florida Storm, the new SFL champions, after dethroning the Baltimore Vultures in the title game in a very, very tightly contested championship game here just a few months ago, now looking to just retool and go again and now maybe make a new dynasty. The last time they won a championship, it was at the end of another new era where we saw roster expansion, we saw more progression, and Florida turned that new era into their dynasty, into a three-peat of champions. We ended the last era with Baltimore becoming a very stalwart and solid dynasty, winning 5 championships. Florida dethroned them. Now can they continue? Who joins the season 21 SFL champions? Cameron Irvine has the call.
With the 63rd pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Florida Storm select free safety Big O Renfro. The 64th pick is Vancouver. You are on the clock.
There we go. There goes Big O Renfro. Jason, Brett, there we go. We talk it up a little bit, and all of a sudden, Mighty's like, you know what? Let's see what we got in Renfro. We get some highlights to match, Mr. Brett Solberg.
Yeah, and you look at the roster set, they're pretty much set in all aspects of the game that they could. At that point, there was, again, going no other choice than defense, and Big O Renfro is that SFL-ready prospect that is going to make an impact right away, and this feels like a steal of a pick if they can sign Renfro to a contract for this season, and he can step up immediately for this Florida squad to basically defend their championship at this stage. So fantastic pick. I have nothing negative to say about that pick for Florida.
Timely stops in the right area at the right time. Jason Peace.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say the name because I knew if I didn't get picked. My one time to be right was the second pick. And as long as I didn't say it, it was going to come through. You know, I got to do Ashley's show with Mighty a couple weeks ago, and boy, the energy and the passion that guy comes in through for this game is something that everyone could learn to add a little bit more to their life. It was an awesome getting to know him a little bit. And thank you for jumping up here and picking Mr. Renfro.
There we go. Big ol' Renfro to the champion Florida Storm. Now we go on to Brett Solberg's favorite team, aka the team he owns, the Vancouver Legion. So, Mr. Brett Solberg, I'm just going to let you have what you're thinking. If you're involved in the decision-making process, kind of allude to us what you're picking, but don't actually tell us who you're picking. But this is where I step aside and let the Canadian talk about the Canadian team.
All right, so we're going to surprise people, and we're going to take someone that's completely off the board. We're selecting my mother. No, I'm kidding. Anyways,
Hey?
This has been a tough draft process for us because ultimately a lot of the guys that we did want to take have been taken already, and a lot of trades that we've wanted to make didn't transpire. So we've been kind of stuck with the 2 picks that we've had, and we've kind of had to roll the dice in terms of who to take at this point. We took Lindsey Thimpson because we wanted a hybrid 5th option for the line. And Thimpson was one of the better prospects out on the board at 15. So we had to take Lindsey at that point. And I feel like this is another pick that we're going to take is someone that we needed to have in terms of filling out our roster and really completing the team. I can't allude too much more on that or else I'm going to be fined for potential tampering. So I'm not taking my mother, so you don't have to worry about that, guys.
So, Jason, as we let the Canadian stew and plot and game plan, let's talk about, just based on what Brett has said over the last few minutes as well. He's talked so heavily about getting a second quarterback for other teams. He's talked so heavily about best value. The best current valued player besides a certain Chad Moore quarterback is Nick Twice, the wide receiver with the best overall in general in terms of talent and speed and in outright athleticism. If I had to flip a coin, it's between those two. Do you see anything different?
No, I think it's Big O Renfro. Oh, no. No. I think we've also heard a little bit of talk about a punter here. So maybe this is where that last kicker gets taken, and maybe if he signed up as kicker punter. Other than that, you've got K Magic sitting there, but let's go with hey, let's get a punter in Vancouver because field position matters.
It was another winning season for Vancouver last season. We will not talk about a certain wild card game against Canton, as I don't want to upset a certain Brett Solberg very much at all. We won't say anything because nothing happened in that game. At least
the position didn't matter in that game.
Nope. I'm still waiting for the replay, by the way.
Okay, pal. But Vancouver, an always excellent organization. Andy Hamilton, Brett Solberg, Gerald Giudice, the entire crew over there, James Walters, always a fantastic group of guys who will join that locker room in Vancouver. Cameron Irvine has our answer.
I hate to give these type of chats any merit because then I feel like it encourages this outlandish behavior, but Pseudo Nakai in the chat was very funny. I'm watching the Vancouver Legion draft board, and I see out of the corner of my eye in the YouTube chat that he says, when does Vancouver draft? I don't know. It's just, I'm in a good mood today. Good one, Charles. With the 64th pick in the SFL Season 21 rookie draft, the Vancouver Legion select tight end Cables McGill. The 65th pick is DC. You, DC, are on the clock.
And that's a tight end. Cables McGee, someone we've also been trying to mention and have have been able to mention Mr. Brett Solberg, let's talk about McGill and really flushing out the tight end spot in Vancouver.
So I talked about it in the podcast as well earlier that the Queen City signing of Abad Ruiz kind of took us off guard for a second. So we were hoping in this third round that one of those tight ends would still be available, and we're happy to have Cables come into this team because he's going to be an effective player both from a blocking perspective and a catching perspective. He was a fantastic catch option for for Nashville this season, and I believe I called 3 Nashville games throughout the SFLM, so I got a really close look on him. So he's just going to be that fantastic second tight end option where Stephen McMichaels doesn't have to do all the brunt work on that line, and he can just step in right away, be the second tight end, and be an open option. He's going to be an effective player for this Vancouver Legion squad.
Take a look at his highlights. A deep threat over the middle, especially with Nashville. Jason, again and again here against Lexington, he was able to try and get his team down the field later on in that game. But just what's the key for Vancouver here to really to effectively utilize now a 2 tight end set?
It's just finding the plays that are going to target that tight end. Maybe sending receivers deep and having tight ends over the middle and that against those zone coverages and finding spaces in the zone. But now I guess we know why Brett was playing down the tight end picks, why people would want their third tight end and things of that nature. Let's not focus on Cables McGill anymore. But no, he was a great player. We saw him. I guess some of the highlights. Correct me if I'm wrong. Rookies have to send in their own highlight package, correct?
They can either do that or they can get some help from either a teammate or someone in the staff of their minor league team.
But I think it's a good sign if a player goes through the trouble to get his highlights to the league before the draft. Something that I didn't even get a chance to do. So, you see that effort, that's immediate. That's an immediate great sign for someone coming into your locker room that is that invested to make sure that gets done.
And so, with pick number 65, we move on to DC, already under halfway through their cycle and their option for their final pick in this draft. Here, Brett Solberg, walk us through what Lord Destro and the rest of the folks at Jacarius Coliseum are trying to cook up here ready for season 22.
We're definitely cooking up something medieval, which I think Destro loves. But in their first round, they took Tyler Highfield, which is going to shore up that safety core. They've got 6 contracted defensive linemen, so there's no need for a defensive lineman to get taken. They took Ben Bowman to shore out the linebacking core. So I'm thinking in this pick here, there's still quite a few selections left in the wide receiver spot, and I feel like a perfect pick that would encapsulate DC would be Hingle McCringleberry.
DC was able to get to the postseason for the 3rd time in 6 seasons since their return to the league. Who will help DC try and reach the playoffs for season number 7? Cameron Irvine, the SFL commissioner, over to you.
With the 65th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the DC Dragons select wide receiver Nick Twice. The 66th pick is back to Queen City. You're on the clock.
Nick Twice? Well, I can't be in 2 places at once, but it sometimes feels like that. Nick Twice is nice for the DC Dragons. Jason Peace. Nick Twice, who was the first name we heard coming out of the air in chat, finally gets off the board here with pick 65. He goes to DC.
Yeah, it's good to see him get to go. He does a good job on getting his progressions in. I think there's one miss there, but I think that's more just saving up. Is probably what that was. But 85 speed, 81 agility, catch is 76, run around 75. So he's touched on a little bit of everything. So he's going to round out to be a good receiver. Probably end up on that development squad and keep the kid continuing to progress. We're going to see all these guys go, and I think you can't go wrong with grabbing another weapon in this league.
And Brett, it wasn't McKingleberry, but it was a wide receiver, and just the elusiveness sometimes at points we saw from Nick Twice this SFLM season is really going to help out Destro and company.
Yeah, decent speed, decent ability to catch, but the thing for me that separates him amongst the other prospects is that he has incredible route running. He's one of the better route runners in this prospect pool as well, so he has that ability to get open, to find those open options. And when you have someone like Shabazz Energy throwing you the rock, you better be open. So it's good to see that DC went with an option that can get open, have that open ability. So a fantastic pick from DC. This was a guy that used to play cornerback in last season and was almost selected with the final pick of the draft. It was my prediction pick, if I'm not mistaken, on the last selection. And now he converted himself to wide receiver, did really well this season with Bossier City, and now it's paid off, and he's going to play for a great DC squad, which I think the only direction for this Dragons team is just up, up, and up.
And now it's the final countdown. 10 more picks to go here in the season 22 rookie draft, gentlemen. And we see a familiar team back on the clock, and this is their final pick, unless they decide to pull a Carolina and trade back. But the Corsairs are back on the clock for the final time this afternoon. Jason, the Corsairs have gone all offense here in round 3. Pepe Silva, halfback. Xavier Knight, wide receiver. Tight end Arnold Paca. It seems it's a tale of 2 days, where all of yesterday was defense and all today is offense. Or do we expect anything different from the Corsairs here?
No, let me see real quick. I mean, there's only the 2 defensive players left, so if they want to go defense, then I mean, they're going to have to go ahead and jump right now. But let me check on K-Magic real quick. Let's see. So yeah, K-Magic has come in and done everything that she's been asked to do. I'm going to go K-Magic here. There would be no reason not to.
So Jason's thinking defense, a bit of a wrinkle in the game plan. Looking at the Corsairs as we speak, the Queen City Corsairs do have Joe Garfield at kicker, so probably not looking at a special teamer in that regard. But we could see wide receiver number 5 come into the fold for the Corsairs after picking up Xavier Knight. Now the wide receiver 4 still got an option here to pick up maybe Ethan Flowers or Eric Duncan. Both sound names we could see in green and black. What do you think, Brett?
The only problem with that is that back, I want to say 2 weeks ago, Ethan Flowers announced in Gen Chat that he wished not to be drafted. It's not going to deter away teams from actually drafting him or not, but he asked that he would not be drafted and he would go back to the SFLM next season as a potential prospect. But it's tough to go against him. 6'2", 202. He's got decent speeds. He's got good catching ability as a prospect. You've got a comparable in Easton King you can go with as well. I think they will go with that 5th receiver just because there's not a lot of options left out on the field. I don't think they need a 5th corner. I don't know if Joaquin Lopez is going to get selected at all at this stage, and no kicker's really going to go for it at this point. So I think it's going to be one of those receivers, or they might shock us and take a second quarterback, but I don't think so because they paid Eric Price so much money.
We continue to look at Queen City and just in general, the Corsairs and their history and what they're trying to do. Of course, the Corsairs, if I remember my SFL history correctly, I know I got the SFL commissioner here, so he's going to look bad if I say it wrong, but the New York Knights, originally they come away with the first ever SFL championship, and now they're trying to rekindle that fire, try and rekindle that magic that made them a force in the early days of the SFL. And it's been hard times in regards. They've had to pass the football a whole bunch because they've been down in so many games, and they've had to rely on offensive weapons. Now they get Eric Price to try and make something happen. They have Jet Zero, who has been the long time back to try and make things happen. These rookies are going to come into an organization with history and longevity, but has not really seen much success. There's this person, this next player for the Corsairs is going to have to come in and realize the history and nostalgia that's part of this team, and then try and bring some new energy, some new life into this team. Jason, quickly to you. The biggest question for a rookie coming into a storied franchise is what?
I think it's just more where you're going to fit in socially, more than on the field. When you're coming in at this end of the depth chart, I mean, when you're coming in as one of the top picks, then you've pretty much got a spot sealed up. But I just think that the locker room you're walking into. You've had talks with the GM, hopefully. Some people get drafted without even having any talks, so you really know nothing. But hopefully you've talked to the GM, you've talked to a couple people, and you know what you're getting into.
The Corsairs' 4th pick of round 3 is in. Over to Cameron Irvine with the call.
With the 66th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Queen City Corsairs select kicker Ian Deegan. The 67th pick is Motor City. You're on the clock.
And so Ian Deegan comes off the board. It's a second kicker for the Corsairs. Does that mean Joe Garfield is switching over, or Deegan is switching over to punter Brett Solberg?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough thing. I just got in my ear earlier in the draft that both the kickers remaining are ineligible to switch to punter, so there is the possibility that Garfield will be switching over to the punter position to have that full special teams unit. I wouldn't be too shocked if that happened, but that would be in negotiation with Joe himself to figure that out. But when you have slim pickings left in this draft, and also getting in my ear as well, they can just sub them into punter in their packages too. So there is an option. You don't have to be a punter to play as a punter. Essentially, we saw it week 2 or week 3 of last season where a wide receiver played quarterback and didn't throw a single rock for guess who's on the clock, Motor City, who likes to play that mad scientist kind of style. So the options are endless in this league. So picking up Deegan, I think, is a pretty smooth selection.
Okay, Jason. Brett likes the selection. I'm okay with the selection. Do you think they could have done something different? Or in regards, Deegan's a fantastic player and is going to do well in Queen City. What's the thought from Buckeye Land?
Well, heck, he could end up playing quarterback. You never know. As Charleston. So, at this point, you're trying to fill a hole and be as creative as you can be. So I don't think there's any problem with what they did. There's only one left. So if you didn't pick him, then you don't know if you could be creative or not. So you're painting with the paint set that you have right now left over is what you're doing, and you're trying to put the best art you can get up there. And with the Motor City pick, I think we're going to see maybe Dots come off the board here with that 77 speed. They gotta love that.
Dots has been just knocking around for the last few minutes now. Where do we go here? Where does the Motor City machine rumble on through now? Again, they picked up King Jackson. From what I'm hearing, I don't think they're gonna go with another backup quarterback. I know, Brett, you have been so adamant about teams picking up another quarterback. To me, there is a mad scientist, and then there is a reformed scientist. What do you think of Motor City? Do they go quarterback, or where do they go now?
Well, with the options left in the prospect pool, a couple of these teams will have to go backup quarterback whether they want to or not. So why not take that option out right away? Like I said, Roquan Dots has been contacting teams saying that he does want to be drafted and he's fine with being a backup quarterback. So I don't see why not select Roquan Dots so you can have that backup option. He's still going to play in the minor leagues. He's still going to be a development player nonetheless moving forward, if I'm not mistaken from that. So I think if you get with that backup quarterback, it gives you a safety valve just in case one of your quarterbacks says, hey, I'm ready to retire, or hey, I'm ready to move on from teams. So why not have that option available to you? That's why I love having a backup quarterback option.
V8s over the seasons have struggled in times. They have been dynamic at others. The question is always revolving: is when will Bank Michigan Stadium see a team that finally eclipses 500 again? The last time, the only time that Motor City has done that in their history was back in their St. Louis Gladiator days in season 16. They were so close again this season. They beat Queen City on the final day, but losing 5 games in between their last 2 wins, in fact, knocking off Baltimore in week 7 of this past season. So it shows that they're able to try and turn things around and try and get things done. The biggest concern out of Motor City last season was their lack of run game. How do they help the run game, or do they go somewhere else? We go to Cameron Irvine with the pick.
With the 67th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Motor City V8 select wide receiver Eric Duncan. The 68th pick is back to San Diego. You're on the clock.
Eric Duncan gets the call for the V8s, and another wide receiver comes off the board, which adds another target for the rookie quarterback King Jackson to throw to. Brett.
Yeah, and this seems like a Motor City pick as well, because Duncan is not the traditional wide receiver. He stands at 5'11", and he is built like essentially DK Metcalf. He's 240 pounds of just lean muscle, so he's almost like excuse me, a short tight end, if you want to think about it, just because of his pure size alone. But he's got that ability to move around the field, and he's going to get those catching options. We didn't see a lot of Duncan with Pittsburgh as well, just because King Jackson loved Himothy Mossam King throughout the season. But I think this is going to be a little bit of a sneaky pick that Motor City might pay dividends with down the line. But at 5'11", 240, he's a bruising option for a wide receiver.
And the biggest thing is they keep the coordination together, bringing over an already established connection for Jackson by bringing in his teammate in Pittsburgh over as well. And rumblings are also hearing that Creata is still knocking around the Detroit locker room in that regard. It just has not signed a contract, so I'm guessing it might be a DJ Moses situation where they're waiting to solidify the roster and then negotiate Creata's contract in that regard. So knowing Motor City, they like what they've seen out of Creata the first couple of seasons that he's been in the blue and orange. And more than likely that is going to continue. Jason, another target, another familiar face, right now is checking all the boxes for Jackson and the Motor City V8s.
Yeah, if he comes across the middle catching it, I don't want that big 240-pound guy running into me. So I'll let Chris get that tackle. And I've also officially figured out that my pen lasts 2 drafts. As we know, I write everything down. I'm not
Brilliant.
I'm not the tech guy, so this is all paperwork and pen. So it's a 2-draft pen. Excited for him to get drafted, and anybody that's getting the opportunities here to get drafted and be a part of the SFL locker room is there's just a benefit for it, because like you said, you're still going to be probably on that dev squad. You're still going to get your playing time in the minors, but you also get to get some more involved in the process of becoming a pro. So everybody that gets drafted here it's a huge bonus to where they're headed off to the SFL.
So what you're telling me, Jason, is next draft, so in about 6 months' time, we need to have Jack's data come up with a betting line for how many rounds does a pen last for Jason Peace. I want to get the next gen stats on that as we move forward and onward and upward. Pick number 68 on the clock for the Mavericks of San Diego. Jason, let's stick with you. The Mavs in this draft have done, well, I think this is their, if I'm just quickly running back through everything, second pick for the Mavericks. Let's walk through their draft history, and let's walk through what they could do with one more pick here in round 3.
I kind of like what Brett was saying about getting that backup quarterback, it's not just a safety blanket, but it's like you said, you're also building relationships for the future. If sometime you need somebody now, at least you've known that guy. He knows you. There's a familiarity there that could help you in the future if you ever needed to. And you could also do the over-under on how many times I was going to mark on myself, which you probably can't see it, but there's just ink marks all over my hands from holding my pen. But here, there's still a couple wide receivers left out there, but maybe K Magic comes off the board here. If I'm a GM right now, I'm looking for players that have jumped in the league, maybe even late, but have been progressing. And that way I know they're here. So K Magic has done that. Maybe we see K off the board now.
And O'Neill loves active players in his locker room. Let's go to Cameron Irvine for San Diego's pick.
With the 68th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the San Diego Mavericks select wide receiver Easton King. How many Kings do we? I had no idea when looking at this draft. That is the third player. We had 2 first-name Kings and now a last-name King here in the third round. Denver has the 69th pick. You are on the clock.
Like I said earlier, we have so many Kings, but only one has gone to Jacksonville. So it's been a super weird draft. But Easton King goes from coast to coast. He goes over to San Diego, and that is another option for an always dangerous and always seemingly pass-happy San Diego offense, Brett Solberg.
Yeah, and again, another big option they can go to, 6'2", 200 pounds. And let's throw another option out there. For San Diego, no contracted halfback at this moment. Could they convert one of those guys and change them in a sub package to be a running back? We've seen it a couple times where wide receivers are that third, fourth option of getting the ball handed off on toss plays or even stretch runs and just use their speed to their advantage. So there is, the option to go through with that. But again, you gotta love having 5 receivers out because it just opens the playbook for you. Easton King, another great pick, another good speedster that can help them down the line. And I just think another home run in this third round from San Diego because they got RC Puff earlier, and that's another great pick. And I think they've gone 2 for 2 in this third round.
And no Hunter McWaffle, you're right. No halfback. So it's going to be interesting. Might we see a lot more maybe sweeps and reverses with some wide receivers? It'll be very interesting to see. Indeed, Jason Easton King comes in. Might he be thrust into more of a dual threat role?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to see that. I mean, it's coming into this draft, I thought you would see teams really fill those positions, but there's definitely something that's been seen where you can play different players out of position and still not just get away with it, but even thrive. We saw it in a game this season where they had the silent C at halfback, and granted in the minors with lower speed, but still 99 speed's 99 speed. So they're having a faster guy back there at wide receiver with somebody like Britton back there at 95 speed. Get him out in the open, he's gone. Always catch him.
4 more wide receivers still on the board yet to go to teams, and we've got 7 more picks to go. We could see all wide receivers off the board, and let's take a look at just where we stand in terms of the players left. In terms of defense, K Magic is a cornerback still lurking around. Safety, Joaquin Lopez out of Philadelphia are the last 2 remaining DBs, last 2 remaining defensive players in general. We still have a whole host of quarterbacks that could find themselves on the back foot. Might one of them go to Denver as the pick is already in? Things are moving very quickly here in the later stages of the draft.
With the 69th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Denver Nightwings select wide receiver Benshad K. The 70th pick belongs to Houston. You are on the clock.
So a third straight wide receiver comes off the board, and it's Benshad K who gets their name called here. Jason, another big wide receiver, another target in Denver.
Yeah, that was one of my guys in Philly. K really had some clutch receptions. We had Slider throwing the ball around, and we really spread the ball around a lot this season. And K on the field really stepped up, had some clutch catches. Needs to amp up that activity a little bit. from what I understand, is involved in some other leagues and maybe needs to focus a little bit more on the SFL side of it. Came in and progressed a couple times, and then kind of got quiet. But talent on the field, really, there's players shined a lot in the minors this season. So it's not a bad pickup. You just need to reach out to him a little and really focus on getting him focused, which that's a small task right there.
Brett Solberg, and we know so many members of our community involved in multiple different leagues, and Ben Schott is well within his right as well with everybody to join multiple leagues. How just trying to keep up with everything could be a task, but for some members, it's easier than others. How do you think Ben Schott will fare in Denver?
It really depends on how he balances his real life as well as the leagues that he's in as well, because if you get too overwhelmed and you join several of these leagues and try to get yourself involved in all of them, some of them are going to fall behind. It's just an inevitability. So what you really need to do is just figure out which one's the right one for you. Hopefully the SFL is one of them for you, and Denver is taking that shot in the dark in hoping that they can negotiate their way. Jeremy is a great negotiator. If he can get 15 minutes with him, he could probably negotiate you into buying a $30 steak for $300 if you want to. So I think Denver is a great landing spot for Ben Schott, and hopefully he does stay in the league.
Mile-high prices. That's what it sounds like to me. Just have a mile-long conversation, and you'll be just fine. And all respect given to Denver. They have done a fantastic job. This offseason was very, very tough for them. And now we move on to Houston. And again, teams are very quick here late in the draft, and we just keep rolling on. Cameron, over to you.
With the 70th pick in the SFL Season 22 rookie draft, the Houston Headhunters select quarterback Iman Kopech. His 71st pick and 72nd picks are Jacksonville's. You're on the clock.
And so here we go. A quarterback comes off the board. Mr. Kopech comes off the board. He did pretty well for Bossier City. Let's go to you, Brett Solberg. Nice little toss there in the back half.
Yeah, and I like having a second quarterback option, because if you're not going to play him, at least it adds a locker room presence to the team. And I've heard good things about Kopech as well, so it's not like they're just throwing a dart at the board and saying, hey, we're going to take this quarterback here. I've heard good things about Kopech. He's going to be that locker room presence for Houston, and maybe down the line, if Dave Burr says, you know what, I think I need to go to a different option, they have the availability to get Kopech developed and become a starting caliber quarterback down the line for them. So this is definitely a future project pick for Houston.
They go pass, and there it is. Touchdown, Bossier outside linebacker.
He will play understudy to Gene Struthers over in Denver, just learning from Struthers, who has already got a season under his belt and learning that offense in Denver. Now the big thing, Jason, is how does he make the next step forward? How does he continue his growth?
Well, I actually I haven't had a chance to talk to him myself, but talking to Brian, he's coming to Houston. Talking to Brian, apparently the messages were back and forth. He came through with huge energy, super excited to be a part of the pros. Said that he had no problem with and understanding that he was, going to be the backup quarterback, but wanted to be a part of the process and wanted to be drafted. And just apparently he just came in with amazing energy. So again, can't wait to get to know the guy. It's good to have that safety valve back there at quarterback, as we've seen.
I mentioned Struthers. My apologies. Dave Burr out of Houston. Picks are coming fast. Thought he was going to Denver for a second. My apologies. But in all regards, it gives you guys in Houston a lot of options to work with and an opportunity to grow someone in that role. Let's move on now to Jacksonville, and here's the quick hitter. We got 5 picks to go, but Jacksonville have the 71st and 72nd pick of the draft. So we're going to quickly go from 5 picks to 3 picks right after Jacksonville comes up with the selection. So, gentlemen, quickly to Brett with 2 picks. You pretty much, we have a very limited scope of players now, and so we could get very close, and we could get both. Let's try and rekindle that magic from the opening where we were right spot on with the first 3 picks. Brett.
Oh, this is going to be so tough just because there is a limited amount of prospects left. But Jacksonville's in a scenario where, money's going to be tight at this stage just because they went big with a couple of their picks. And then later on, now they're starting to maybe pinch some pennies here. So I don't know if it's going to be like a Chad Moore pick or anything like that because he is going to be rocking an $800,000 contract. My gut tells me wide receiver, tight end to kind of go things. There's still Jacob Riley out there in the tight end position, and you still have 2 wide receivers left to choose from, whether it be McCringleberry or Elliott Pope Jr. But honestly, you could honestly just throw your hands up in the air and say Joe Schmo from Idaho, and you'd probably be close.
And the big thing for me is they already have drafted 2 wide receivers at this point, and so I'm looking at what they could do with maybe 6 receivers. I know you guys in Vancouver ran with 6 receivers last year, if I'm not mistaken, or last season, excuse me. But the big thing now is they could go very well 6 wide receivers and get those guys involved. We might see. I almost think Jacksonville is still thinking, we've got an option to take. I'm right along with you. The tight end role, maybe they pick one of their last 2 remaining DBs. Jason, let's run to you quick with 1:44 to go in picking, or in the clock right now. Excuse me.
I'd like to see Elliott Pope Jr. Get drafted and go here out of Nashville. He seems to be on board with doing what he needs to do, but. Why not? Let's just go ahead and take the guys that are going to be playing in the championship game. Let's go Dylan Petty at quarterback and take take Hingle and just put two guys from Chicago on your team.
That's a pretty solid yes yourself as we talk a little bit more about Duval, a little bit more about Jacksonville. Again, we've already gone over a few different teams and their histories. Jacksonville, unfortunately, last 3 seasons has not gone their way. They have improved since season 19 and season 20. They've now at 4-8. They won 2 of their last 3 games. And then can they keep maybe this positive trajectory going? Their picks are in. We go to SFL Commissioner Cameron Irvine.
With the 71st and 72nd picks in the SFL Season 22 draft, the Jacksonville Kings first select cornerback K Magic with the 71st selection. With the 72nd selection in the Season 22 SFL Rookie Draft, the Jacksonville Kings select tight end Jacob Riley. The 73rd pick is Atlanta's. You are on the clock.
Thank you, Cam. 3 more to go after this one. We are in the home stretch, but 2 picks to talk about. Brett, I will give you Jacob Riley, and, well, actually, yeah, I was going to say Jacob gets Jacob, but we don't have our resident Aussie here today. So that means, Jason, you get K Magic. Brett, let's talk about another tight end in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and it's a 3rd tight end in that roster, and they took Dot Williams earlier, so it's going to be a battle between those 2 tight ends, between Williams and Riley, on who's going to be that definitive 2nd tight end on the roster. But you know what? Like I said, there hasn't been a lot of players left to choose from. You're now starting to dwindle to whoever's left at this stage, and of course, quarterback. I don't think they really need to go with that, so they went with Riley. It's going to be nice to have him if they can sign him on the contract. It's again another good option for the special teams if he ever wants to go to the special teams, and it just adds more depth on their roster, which I think tight end was the way to go for Jacksonville on this one.
Another DB, Jason, for the Jacksonville Kings. They already have Dylan Bampsler, they already picked up Havel Ramsey in the first round. Then they came around, waited a few rounds to go ahead and get another DB. And this time they pick up K Magic, and it's a good selection. It's a needed selection to help out that secondary, which has struggled at times with the pass.
Yeah, I think so, and it's good to see people that deserve to be drafted get drafted. You know, K's come in, looks like since week 11, and has not missed any progression. Has made the most of the funds that they had available. Actually put some on pass rush there, so maybe we can see some situations with a corner blitz or something like that where they can get to the quarterback. But it's good to see somebody who's got that activity and that drive to get things done, get drafted. And I really like what Jacksonville did. If they could just get some of these guys to stick and re-sign, they could be building something pretty nice here.
That would be fun to see, especially in a very, very, very tight East Division, all told. So, final 3 picks to go in this draft. Atlanta is now on the clock. They earlier picked Bentley Bonner at corner with pick number 53. They get back on the clock 20 picks later here at pick number 73. And the biggest question still remains here, Brett Solberg, is what does Atlanta do? That's the easy question. The hard question is, do they try and find another weapon at this point? Because all that really seems to be left to go is weapons, or do they pick the final defensive back and get Jaquin Lopez involved in that Atlanta defense?
I'll throw you a little bit of a curveball as well. There's still Jackson Arthur out available as well, so they could go the Queen City route and pick Jackson Arthur so they can have their makeshift punter be that sub package for punting units. So I'll throw that out there, but I wouldn't be too surprised if it is either of Hingle McCringleberry or Elliot Pope Jr. as well.
And the Swarms pick is in. Pick 73 over to Cameron Irvine.
With the 73rd pick in the SFL Season 21-22 rookie draft. You know what's funny about that, Tyler? I was thinking in my head, I really made a lot of mistakes today as I call it Season 21. Isn't that funny how that happened? Anyway, 73rd pick in the Season 22 SFL rookie draft, the Atlanta Swarms select quarterback Chad Moore. The 74th pick is Carolina? Question mark? You're on the clock, Skyhawks.
Well, here we go. The next best quarterbacks on after King Jackson Chad Moore is going to be Bryant Dynasty's second in command. This is an interesting pick. Brett Solberg. Dynasty has had his way in Atlanta for ever since season 16 after Marcus Dunhill left the organization. This is huge. This is huge news in Atlanta land.
Yeah, that just means Bryant Dynasty's done at this point. Chad Moore is going to be quarterback of today and tomorrow and the future. I think Atlanta just selected their week 1 starter at this point. Chad Moore, fantastic prospect, and I do think that it is a smart selection again. I'm one of the fans of the 2 QB system there, and I like. Jokes aside, I would love to see Chad Moore start a couple games for Atlanta because when you have that 2 quarterback system, you can't just use them as a kick spotter for the team, which unfortunately we did with Austin Blanco last season just because we couldn't get away from Christian Bound. But I would like this season to see Chad Moore especially just get a couple weeks of action in and see what he's capable of in that major league level. And if Atlanta wants to do that, they can do that. But I like the Chad Moore pick. I like it for this franchise. He seems like a decent guy as well. He's been waiting forever to get selected too. So all thumbs up here from this side.
It's a very, very spicy analysis from Brett Solberg. Dynasty done? Question mark. Don't count the hair flip out just yet. The Hawaiian hair flip still got some life left in those arms and legs. So Jason, Chad Moore gets off the board quickly. Let's tag team this. Let's talk about Moore just a little bit longer, and let's maybe speculate whether or not Carolina will pick or not.
No, I think they're going to trade entirely out of the draft. You know, I'm glad Chad got his name called, man. He's done his time in the minors. It's good to hear your name in the draft. I'm sure that he would like to have had it done in a top 10 way, but still to get to join a quality organization like Atlanta. I would have thought that it would have been Dots due to the Albuquerque connection there. But Chad's a higher overall player, way more developed. And he's still going to, if he's back up, I mean, he should still get his spot in the minors next year to come back. So, good to hear his name called. Carolina, I have no idea, other than Elliott Pope Jr. needs to be drafted probably at some point.
Well, here's a shocker. Carolina's pick is in. They're going to pick. They're going to pick in here in the third round. Let's go to Cameron Irvine for 74.
Actually, they're going to trade. Just kidding. With the 74th pick in the Season 22 SFL Rookie Draft, the Carolina Skyhawks are potentially getting a champion in 2 days. Quarterback Dylan Petty out of Chicago. The 75th pick is Arizona. You are on the clock to end the draft.
Brett Solberg, you talked about this when Carolina was trying to trade their pick away for the first time. Matt South or someone on that offense always seems to get injured. Now they have a potential champion on that roster.
Yeah, and you want to have a champion quality added to the roster. And Dylan Petty, undefeated so far with the Chicago Warriors squad. And it hasn't been, as a result of his passing game, but he has been an effective member of the Chicago offense, and he's gonna slide right in very well in a Carolina roster. They might infect him a little bit with a little troll magic, a little meme magic, just because you've got Skippy and you've got the Prasads to worry about, because all they are meme machines, it feels like. But nonetheless, I think Petty's a great selection. And again, I would love to see him play a week of action just to see what he's capable of in the majors. But at the end of the day, Dylan Petty, a great pick. And again, that safety valve, because it feels like there's a curse. No matter what game we go to, it seems like it's Matt South or it's Harish Prasad or it's somebody on that offense that just goes out for the game because they tore their ACL, LCL, PCL, LCL, whatever hell LCL they have in their knee, and then they're done for the week. It's just, I think that's a good safety valve pick.
Okay, Jason, probably our final speculation of the afternoon.
Of what Arizona's going to do, or what just
what
happened?
is the final pick, or does Arizona give up the final pick? Or are we saying Dylan Petty is going to be the Mr. Impactful? Because this final pick of the draft is, in some leagues it's called Mr. Irrelevant. Here it is the impactful one, Mr. or Mrs. Impactful.
Let's take Dots off the board here, and let's just call it a day.
Dots off the board, going to Arizona potentially, says Jason. Brett, final analysis from you.
It's tough to say. There's that one pick left, and I don't think that Ashley Jackson wants to stop running the football herself, so I don't think they're going to go quarterback on this one. Put me down for Elliott Pope Jr.
Elliott Pope Jr. or Dots. That's the analyst pick. As the host, to me, just seeing everybody happy that they got picked, and those that are waiting to get picked, it might not happen this season, but next season, there's time. Develop is the big thing. Just continue to hold on to that hope that you will be picked. You'll become better in the minor leagues. The minor league system is much improved with guaranteed owners and owners that really try, and that as I've seen, really try and develop players and get to know players. And so now the final pick of the season 22 SFL rookie draft is in. Who is Mr. or Mrs. Impactful? Over to Cameron Irvine.
With the 75th pick in the SFL season 22 rookie draft, the Arizona Scorpions select safety Joaquin Lopez. That concludes the season 22 rookie draft. To wrap it up, everyone, thank you all for watching. Happy New Year. Can't wait for the SFLM Championship coming up between Nashville and Chicago on January 1st. And the new season is right around the corner. Details on when you'll get your roster files, when you'll get updated textures, and when playbooks are due to get set for the season coming shortly. Happy New Year, everybody.
Joaquin Lopez, the final defensive player available, goes to Arizona to back up Eddie Gage and company in the defensive secondary. That is your draft, Arizona. Brett Solberg. This pick had to come a little bit later than maybe Arizona would have liked, but they get a DB.
Yeah, and I think now, finally, the old man can retire, get himself some great rest. Eddie Gage can finally say, I'm going to lay my feet back and just focus on owning the team and running my podcast all alone. Say it with your chest is back, ladies and gentlemen. But nonetheless, the biggest question mark we talked about early on before this draft, this third round started, is going to be activity. Is Joaquin Lopez going to be there for Arizona? But it's still a good pick nonetheless. I will have to note, I do feel bad for Roquan Dots, mainly because he did contact a bunch of teams saying that he was willing to get selected, but now he's got a second chance coming up. He's going to play again with Albuquerque next season, and I think he's just going to dominate the SFLM. So watch out for Roquan Dots this next season here.
You know, Brett, that Eddie giving up control, that's never going to happen. You know that, right? Eddie will.
He's going to retire his position. He knows he can't get a pick 6 in this game either, so he's just done.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. You need to go on and say it with your chest there, Brett. Wow. Oh, my goodness. Jason, we'll get to hear in a second. Chris Delro with a $5 super chat. Thank you, draft panel, for everything. Hats off to you, Chris. We'll do our proper farewells in a bit, but thank you, Chris, for the 5 and for your goodwill. Jason, Joaquin Lopez comes off the board. It's a new style of defense coming the way of Arizona.
Yeah, I think we've seen it from the opening part of the draft. It's teams are going to really load up on these DBs and these faster players and try to make a difference on defense, because I think we've seen that you've got to hit these running backs more than just once. You got to get them you got to hit them at the line. You got to have somebody following up right behind them. So I think speed is key, agility is key. So I think that's what we saw people focus. I think that's why we have 0 players left remaining in the minors now at the defensive position. Every defensive player has now been drafted. So I think defense is key. Teams are, especially, defensive-minded teams like Arizona and owners like Arizona who like to get after the run and shut people down, weren't able to do it this past season. So one way to do it is throw bodies at it, throw the fastest and the most bodies you can throw at it.
Jason, 2 days of draft analysis, first time doing it. We appreciate you. You've done a fantastic job. We thank you. Your final thoughts quickly before we wrap up.
I mean, this is a blast. I had a great time. Something I've always wanted to do. When I first joined the league, I watched every draft back to back. Just binge watched drafts and every bit of media that I could find on the SFL when I joined. So I've always wanted to do this. I respect what you guys do. Tyler, you do a fantastic job of leading the crew. Jacob did a great job. Enjoyed being with you today, Brett. So yeah, I'd be happy to do it again. This is just it's cool stuff, man. And when you're invested in it and you do know to spend time looking at it, you get to learn a lot about it. And who else are you going to talk to about it? I mean, I can talk to Daisy Peace a little bit about it, but she's getting there. But and then talking to Chris every day about it. So, I got to spend a few hours of my weekend talking to other people about something that I really enjoy.
Absolutely. Great to have you. Thanks as always, partner Brett Solberg. We have been on so many broadcasts together, a couple of draft panels now. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for all your input and jokes. Cam especially loved it. You can see him just doubling over laughing here at multiple times here at SFL headquarters. Just again, thank you for being here. Your final thoughts today.
Yeah, as Ashley Jackson is staring daggers at my chest because she's like 2 feet shorter than me. But at the end of the day, it's just been a fun third round. I only managed to catch a little bit of the action in the first and second round because I was closing at my workplace, so I tried to catch as much as I could. You guys, the first 2 round panels did really well. Analyzing everything, it felt like I did a little bit of a lesser job here just because I feel like I was less prepared. Seeing the pictures in the chat with like everyone prepared for their stuff, and here I am with like Tyler's off-season hub and then my own draft hub myself, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like I have enough here. But nonetheless, this has been fun, and for the guys who didn't get drafted, use this as motivation fuel to be a early first-round pick for next season. Make it the reason that you become a top pick moving forward. So use this as big motivation for the players who did get drafted. I can't wait to see you guys out on the field and get your butt kicked by Vancouver.
Oh, there we go. 2 days before the SFLM championship game between Chicago and Nashville will take place on January 1st, 2024. We hope to see you all there. It has been a blast. Congratulations to all those drafted. Good luck to everyone in the next season, and we will see you then. Until then, everybody, from SFL headquarters here in the United States of America, for Cam and Irvine and the rest of our crew, I've been Tyler Falk. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, and good morning, good afternoon, and good night.